at first, when we first started doing the chemo, it was such a weird experience because it was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I'm actually going to the oncologist to get chemo pumped in my veins. Mm-hmm. You know, like something that you just see in movies, mm-hmm. you know, or like you hear about these things and we're actually doing it. It was almost like this out of body experience, almost like we're just like floating into the doctor's office and it's not really us, and like almost like we're watching ourselves on TV.
I can totally, I mean, everything you're saying, yes, because from the moment I had gotten that phone call at work, it was like stunned. We were stunned into like, okay, I can't believe this is really happening.
Yeah, it was like they were just taking us and like, okay, this is what you need to do. You got to get in this line and you got to move and you got to like, and they're just like pointing us in these directions and we had no idea. We're like, I guess this is what we have to do. We just got to see an oncologist. Okay, you're saying we need to have this certain type of chemo. Okay, you know, what do we know?
I know.
Like, we had no idea, like, how to take care of this thing.
Right. It was so shocking. It was all very shocking. Everything that they had said and prepped us for and we signed on the dotted line for, it was just all very shocking. There was even a conversation with our oncologist that we were a newly married couple, that we could never, we might not ever have children. And
because of the chemo.
And they had said, well, you're young, so there's a higher chance that it might not happen to you, but be prepared. And so I was like, I don't even have a moment to even think about this. Like, wait a minute, I have this career that I'm climbing the corporate ladder. Did I want to have children? Like, wait a minute. Like, we just got married. Like,
we talked about it, but it wasn't nothing serious about it. Like, we say, well, one day we'll have children, but then all of a sudden they were saying, well,
you might not be able to.
Yeah, so
after this chemo,
that wouldn't even be an option. But
I know. So it was like, I don't even have time to think about it. I was like, I just wanted you to be better, so then maybe I could think about it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very unreal. It was very unreal. Like all the conversations that we had with the oncologist and our family members and our friends and with each other. Like, I remember we just kind of looked at each other like so baffled. Like, we were not expecting this at all.
No, and then, you know, also to deal with like insurance companies, and it was just
right.
It's such an emotional thing, like just mentally, physically, like just thinking about it is just so emotionally exhausting. That's what we did. We started. I had to go into the doctor's office and get chemo, and they'd basically bring you into this room. It's almost like barber chairs, you know, you're gonna get a haircut or something.
Well, they were more like recliners.
Yeah, they were like recliners. But it was like a circle of them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, there's probably like maybe 8 or 10 maybe 8 or 10. Of just all around in a circle, kinda, all around this room, and you just sit in the chair, and then they just find a vein in one of your arms, and then they just start pumping chemo in there, and I had different four different kinds of chemo, which stood for A, B, V, D. I don't think I can even tell you what they stand for.
10 years ago.
But it was like the standard one that they use for Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it supposedly works every time. But just being there in the beginning, you know, actually the whole time I was the youngest one there.
This was 10 years ago when I kind of felt like it was still very shocking when someone had cancer, but I kind of feel like now a lot more people have cancer and a lot more younger people have cancer. But 10 years ago, I kind of felt like it was shocking. You were the youngest person
by far.
Yeah. I mean, the people that were sitting around you were either our parents' age or much older than that.
Yes. And then there was a lot of people there that mainly women who had breast cancer. That was huge, and then maybe lung cancer. But you know, at the time I felt like, well, let's start with, you know, they were starting to like trying to find veins in my arm, which after the first time, like it was not happening. Like they couldn't find a vein in my arm. Like it was just a struggle just to do that, and it was such a painful thing. Then they're digging in your arm trying to find this vein to pump chemo in, but then after they find it, like the chemo is just so like harsh. Like for me, I mean that's what my experience was, is that like I felt it like burning my vein. Like it was just burning me. Like my veins in my arm was just burning as it was getting dropped in there.
And I remember the next day, even like you had vein pain in your arm. Like, and I remember you woke up in the middle of the night, and there was nothing that I could do to comfort you. But I wrapped your arm in like a warm towel, but your arm was just like a throbbing pain.
Well, it felt like your arm getting smashed in a car door. Like that's what it felt like. It felt like I put my arm in the car door and someone just slammed it, and it was just like an excruciating pain. But like, I don't know. I think how we fixed that, how we got through that, was that I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and this was after like the first day of getting chemo, and I was like, man, this is gonna be a long time. But I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and I just started drinking water, like insanely drinking water, like a lot of it. And slowly, after I started drinking this water, the vein pain started to go away.
Yeah.
And I really think it was because I was dehydrated, and I needed to drink a ton of water.
Yeah.
And that worked.
Yeah.
And so that whole time I was doing chemo, the rest of the time, I would drink so much water, because I didn't want that pain to happen, and it didn't happen.
You ended up getting the port.
But after the first day, but that's another thing that like they didn't tell you about. Like you could get this port put in, where they don't even have to find the vein anymore. They would just basically plug you in, with this port, and that's it. And it was just so much easier, and we didn't know this until after the first day. I think a chemo patient mentioned to me, "Hey, how come you don't get the port?" And I'm like, "What is this port?" So I ended up getting a port in my chest, which basically it's under the skin. I still have a scar there, and it's like hooked up to one of your main veins inside of you. So all you see is like this little bump, almost like a button, almost. And they just plug you in there. So that made it a whole lot easier. The rest of the time was having this port in. But yeah, I mean, so every other week we just did chemo.